This is a historical analysis of the play The Emperor Jones and its playwright Eugene O'Neill. First up is the historical background of the playwright Eugene O'Neill. So Eugene O'Neill was born in a hotel on Broadway in 1888. Eugene spent his first 7 years of his life touring with his father's theater company. He spent the next 7 years receiving a strict Catholic education before attending private school in Connecticut. Though he was a bright student, he was caught up in the crazy 1920s New York life of booze and prostitutes by the time he entered college. He dropped out of Princeton before his first year even had ended, and he took one small class at Harvard for playwriting, but then stopped as well. In 1910, he fell in love with his first of 3 wives, Kathleen Jenkins. Eventually, she filed for divorce 2 years later, and he returned to his parents. When he returned, his father was very despondent and his mother was a morphine addict. This environment that he returned to drove Eugene to become a playwright. It inspired him to begin his career in playwriting and one-acts. He spent the next 5 years working on one-acts, and he married his second wife, Agnes Bolton. They had 2 children together. But it wasn't until his play Beyond the Horizon in 1920 that he began to gain traction in his career. Following that success, he went into an incredibly productive period where he wrote The Emperor Jones and The Hairy Ape, establishing him as a master of the craft of playwriting. The second point in the analysis of The Emperor Jones and its playwright is the story surrounding Emperor Jones. It is one where natives on an unnamed Caribbean country are rebelling against a tyrannical leader. It was a social commentary on the U.S. occupation of Haiti after bloody rebellions there, an act of imperialism that was much condemned in O'Neill's radical political circles in New York. The hallucinations that Jones experiences in the jungle draws on O'Neill's own hallucinatory experience hacking through the jungle while prospecting for gold in Honduras in 1909. The last point in this historical analysis is the time when the play was written. In New York City in the 1920s, which is where O'Neill mostly resided during his career of writing plays and one acts, it was defined by its sights and sounds and was essentially a decade-long party. During what's called the Great Migration, African Americans moved from the South to the northern cities. By the 1920s, around 200,000 African Americans made New York City their home. The 1920s was also the era of Prohibition. The 18th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution banned the sale, manufacturing, and transportation of alcohol. This invited the interest of bootleggers, also known as rum runners, who would smuggle liquor from overseas and bring them to the secret speakeasies. That's my analysis on The Emperor Jones and its playwright Eugene O'Neill. I hope you enjoyed